We are absolutely winning right now. Absolutely. We have done more than change the conversation. We changed the balance of power in the federal government.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with y'all? You niggas are crazy.
Hey yo, Quantic, run them bands up. Hey yo, Quantic, run them bands up. Hey yo, Quantic, run them bands up. Hey, yo, Quantic, run them bands up.
The 2018 election has been described as a blue wave, but it was also a pink one. On Thursday, a record 102 women were sworn in as members of the U.S. House of Representatives, nearly 1/4 of the total membership. In the Texas county that includes Houston, the trend may have been most apparent. That's where 19 African-American women ran for judgeships under a common campaign theme. Together, they made history and are about to make some big changes.
It was a sweeping decision 2018 win for African-American women in Harris County.
I mean, this is really historic.
It is. We put in the work on the campaign trail.
We were definitely vocal. We were definitely present. We were definitely there. And maybe we're just a little bit more noticeable.
Erica Hughes, Jermaine Tanner, and Latasha Lewis Payne were part of a movement that flipped the Harris County courthouses blue. Non-Black women were voting for you.
Yes.
Millennial whites.
Yes.
Hispanics.
Yes.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that Texas and Harris County is ready to embrace the diversity that we have in our state. And not only to embrace it, but to recognize the importance of it.
The 17 newly elected judges stomped on platforms promising perspective and fairness.
When we talk about making sure that people walk into the courtroom, and whether they are represented by the highest paid lawyer, which I've been, or a pro bono lawyer, which I've been, that they are going to get the very best opportunity for justice.
To get their vote, candidates first had to capture voters' attention in a race with few stars, little money, and narrow appeal.
We looked at each other and realized, wow, it's 19 of us.
We need to embrace the significance of having so many of us.
So why not show it?
I knew a very specific look for the picture that we wanted.
Enter Dallas Jones, a political strategist for Harris County's Democratic Party. He arranged the photo shoot that produced this snapshot. It looked like a Vanity Fair photo, is what it looked like.
Nobody wanted to see.
It's so odd how every time there is a promotion of the Black female image, there's always a bunch of gay Black men in the background doing all the legwork.
This stuffy, stand there. And that's not what people wanted to see. They wanted to see real people, and they wanted to see the power and the strength of Black women. And that's what that image portrayed.
The combination of that picture and 3 little words,
Black Girl Magic.
Black Girl Magic.
went viral.
A couple of local rappers here in Houston posted. Rappers, and then a few actors and comedians started posting it.
The hashtag isn't new. It's promoted Black female pride across social media for years. But as a slogan for a political campaign, it was lightning in a bottle.
Kamala Harris, when she posted our picture on her Instagram page, that was amazing, amazing.
You saw 19 qualified African-American women on the ballot. I think that motivated our community to get out and vote.
The nation's eyes are on Texas. And I think that means that they're on Harris County.
With more than 4.5 million residents, Harris County is bigger in population than 14 states and boasts both racial and economic diversity. Still, it accounted for 1/5 of all the Texas children locked up in the state's juvenile prisons in 2017. Democrats in Harris County won on reforming that system, which now faces multiple discrimination lawsuits. One report found that hundreds of people are jailed on minor offenses every day because they can't afford to make bail. 53% of them are detained for more than 7 days.
I was pretty vocal and pretty adamant about changing the way business is done.
Judge Mark Carter, an African-American Army veteran, considered himself a progressive reformer.
I was involved in starting the first mental health courts. I was active in starting the first public defender's office in Houston.
But says he lost on election day because he's a Republican.
When a litigant comes into the courtroom, they want to know, is this judge fair? They don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. What we should be is independent.
While applauding the new female bloc, Carter says moderate voices like his were drowned out because of straight ticket voting, choosing all candidates of one party by simply checking one box.
Let's be honest, is straight ticket voting something new?
No, absolutely not. Republicans have benefited from that for the last 20 years. And before that, Democrats. And so the bottom line is that we're selecting our judges based on party.
The irony is straight ticket voting in Texas will end before the 2020 elections.
Harris County Civil District Court judges, Latasha Lewis Payne.
This new slate of judges was sworn in on New Year's Day.
In the end, we are going to put in the work.
A lot of judges win, get on the bench, and you won't see them again until election time or election season.
We want to stay in the community. And as long as we do that and keep the community engaged about what we're doing in our courts, I think that that would make a difference.
A lot of reaction. Folks want to see what they're going to do. You talk to them and they have a plan and they're moving forward.
There's some very impressive women. And I'm, I don't know if people know how hard it is to flip judge chips. I mean, because they're far down on the ballot.
Yes.
People don't pay a lot of attention. So that's a major
power of
achievement.
social media too that we always think about, but it's right there in their hands.
Learned so much on this story. Did not know that Houston did not have a public defender's office before 2011.
Wow.
Who knew that?
Good morning, everybody. There's not much I can say, but the judge. All right.
Can you come this way?
Sure.
Okay, this one right there.
All right, there's not much I can say. The judge has made the call, and so what's important is what's next. Frisco PD will be finishing up their investigation. They will submit the case to my office. We will review it and ultimately present it to a grand jury. And so that's what's next. That's pretty much all I can say right now. We do our speaking in as far as the facts go in the courtroom. Many of you were in there, so you understand what was said. But this is a terrible tragedy for our entire, not just Frisco, but Collin County community. One family has suffered a permanent loss. It's the most unnatural thing for a parent to lose their child. It's permanent. It's profound. It's certainly premature. And it's the hardest thing that I think a human being can go through is to lose their child. The Anthony family has had a different kind of loss, but a loss nonetheless. But the judge has made her call, and we look forward to continuing the process and looking forward to reviewing all the facts of the case that Frisco PD is coming up with and present it to a grand jury. What we're concerned about as prosecutors is justice, truth, and accountability. And so we will go where the facts lead us. Thank you so much.
Could you speak about the security and the vitriol and just the safety even for the judge and your officer?
Well, this has definitely rocked our entire community. And so it has struck a nerve in the community, and it's hard for everybody to be level-headed at a time like this. So that's where we come in. It's our job to be level-headed, to be fact-based, and to follow the truth wherever it leads. Thank you so much.
And what did you guys? Thank you.
Yeah, that's attorney.
We can't do this in here.
It's 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds? Okay. Good? Everybody good? Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life. Self-defense is a protection that applies to each and every one of us. There are two sides to every story. And Carmelo is a 17-year-old kid and an excellent student. He is the captain of his track team. He is the captain of his football team. And prior to this, what was on his mind was what college he was going to go to. This is a tragedy all the way around for both families. Rushing to judgment, trial by public perception and trial by media is not how we ensure justice is done. We are confident that after a full investigation, that the truth will come out. Thank you.
Mike, you took umbrage with the state's assessment that this was simple and brutal. Why so?
Well, the fact of the matter is, like I said, there's two sides to every story, and we've only heard one side. In any criminal case, the police investigate, and the defense is always far behind that. And so it is a one-sided investigation to this point, and even that investigation is still ongoing. So to say that it happened this way or that way is just not accurate at this point. All of the facts are going to come out, and that's why our system of justice requires that we keep our minds open and we let the facts come out as they are after a full investigation.
Is your plan to be able to make bond and get out today?
I anticipate that he will be able to make bond. I can't speak to how quickly that will go. Funds, in the funds that have been raised are not quick to come out. And then, there's obviously a process to the release process once bond is posted.
The big question that a lot of people have is, why was this young man armed on school property?
That's an understandable question, but it's not something that, frankly, we're prepared to even go into. This is something that I know the police and the prosecution want to get it right and want to have a full and fair investigation, and so do we. So it would be irresponsible for me or them at this point to start saying, this is what happened, this is why, anything. So I understand that's a big question. It's going to be a big question, and it's something that we will find out, and we ask that the public, as hard as it is, withhold judgment and let both of these families have justice, that let both of these young men, the Metcalf family and the memory of who they've lost, but also Carmelo, have a fair and full justice process.
How you're feeling on the reduction of this bond? You feel it's fair?
Yeah, I feel it's fair. Bond, as the judge said, is not supposed to be an instrument of oppression. It's not supposed to keep people in jail. It's not supposed to punish. It's supposed to ensure that a person shows up to court, complies with all conditions, and it's supposed to keep the community safe. So this is a large and substantial bond, and the judge has, I think, rightly imposed reasonable conditions that will ensure both Carmelo and the Anthony family's safety, but also the safety of the community.
What was Carmelo's reaction today? He didn't seem very talkative toward you. And how has jail, I guess, been so far for this teenager? And is he on suicide watch or anything like that?
I honestly can't speak to Carmelo's reaction because I was so focused on the hearing and what was going on and what the judge was saying. I think we have to all remember
Carmelo is a 17-year-old kid who's never been in any sort of trouble before. If you can just put yourself in his shoes, this is a scary, bewildering process. And I can't even imagine what was going through his head, just as I'm sure I can't imagine what was going through the heads of the Metcalf family. So, this is something that is new to all of them and incredibly trying.
So for people who want to know, why were you selected? I mean, what is your experience? I mean, you had to be really good.
I can't speak as to why I was selected. In any case, it's important to have an attorney that you connect with, that you feel has the right amount of experience and the right investment in the case. And I'm not speaking to anybody else. I just know that that's important in any case.
Just how unsafe does this family feel? You mentioned it multiple times.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to speak for them at this point, but I think you can imagine the press coverage on this case has been immense, and the online and public reaction has been immense. And unfortunately, as is common in our culture, especially lately, the vitriol and the public reaction one way or the other has been intense. And threats and talk of race war and all kinds of insanity isn't good for, obviously, the Anthony family. It's not good for the Metcalf family. It's not good for the peace and safety of our community. So, I would ask, and I know both sides would ask, that the temperature on this be allowed to come down, that, the media, you guys have a job to do, and I understand that everyone does, but, at the same time, we just ask everyone in the public and everywhere to let this process play out fairly and fully for both sides. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
The Frisco Memorial High School community.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Thank you. Appreciate you guys following us as we cover this story. I really don't want to keep talking about this every day, but it's the story that just won't quit. And I don't want to talk all that much about the actual incident of the case because, I don't want to litigate the trial forever. But there are always incidents around the story that perk my interest as well. The boy's free. They let the boy out. He got his bail. Black female judge reduced his bail by 75%. I don't know how often bails get reduced, and I don't know what the typical percentage ratio might be for that kind of thing. But a 75% reduction is pretty huge.
Carmelo, why were you armed at school? Explain your self-defense. How is this self-defense? No, you didn't say.
Is that private security they hired for that kid? Which they should. I mean, it's kind of a big thing. This is like the what was that movie with Samuel Jackson back in the day and Matthew McConaughey? It was A Time to Kill. This is like Texas's modern version of A Time to Kill. There's a really, really hot button issue public trial. And there you have it, folks. The boy's free. The boy is out. And we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I don't want to continuously litigate this thing over and over again on my one channel here because doesn't matter at all really what I think. We'll see how the courts play out. But I want to look at, again, issues around the case. How do we approach this? There are a lot of Black people who seem to be invested in this case for no other reason than I want to do good for Black people. I want to help Black people in whatever way. And therefore, the death of Austin Metcalf is seen as some type of racial victory. And now the question becomes, is this Black female judge also a part of that crew who thinks this may be some type of Black racial victory?
It's a disproportionate amount of data pointing to young Black youth being incredibly violent and far outsized in the murder rates and in the violence rates. And that seems to be like a question that has to be taken head on. But it isn't helped with 500,000 people donating to Carmelo Anthony's GoFundMe when you can murder somebody and then get a lot of money for it. That's crazy. This is a system that is broken here. The judge just lowered the bond for Carmelo Anthony down to $250,000 for stabbing and murdering a kid. I don't care what his it doesn't matter. You stabbed and murdered someone.
Right.
Like it is irrelevant.
Now, for a lot of white America, the general tone is you can't just kill a kid and then, expect to just get away with it, which is an understandable, very common sentiment, very not shocking at all from white America. But what I'm hearing from Black America is, well, you shouldn't touch me because I just might stab you, and then if you die, it's not my fault. These seem like two irreconcilable positions. I don't know how we can get these two positions to really meet in the middle.
There's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low Black population.
Relevant if it's some old man sitting on a park bench, right? Or a kid at a track meet. There's zero justification to ever stab and murder somebody, no matter what they say to you.
Well,
there seems to be this individual is getting rewarded, Doctor.
Well, he's certainly being rewarded, and for a while after George Floyd, it seemed as if the fastest way to get rich in America for some Black people was to have a relative killed by a police officer, because the cities just immediately settled regardless of the circumstances.
You know what? I didn't care to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's tie this whole thing to George Floyd. Let's blame the death of Austin Metcalf on George Floyd, right? Let's do that. I'm going to pontificate wildly for a moment, but follow me. A couple of years ago, George Floyd dies, killed by a police officer. The nation erupts in outrage and protest and Black Lives Matter and, I can't breathe and all these things. And the world falls in line as well. And the world erupts in protest. They were protesting in New Zealand. It's crazy. It's crazy. At that same time, I guess in a suicidal expression of guilt and shame, America basically said, you know what? You guys can have a little bit of crime. And because we're sad about George Floyd, we're going to let you Blacks just have at it for a little while. And that's kind of what's been happening ever since the George Floyd protest. Like, not just Black violence in general and mayhem and stupid street things just happening, like all the takeovers and California and whatnot. It's not just that. But I would argue, I'm willing to bet money. I'm willing to bet money, dollars to donuts even. I would bet dollars to donuts because I wouldn't mind a donut every now and then. I bet dollars to donuts that since the George Floyd protest, incidents of black on white interracial violence have spiked dramatically. I don't need a college boy with glasses to go crack the numbers open for me. I just know. I just know that it can be no other way. And all that racial exuberance led to the killing of Austin Metcalf. There, I did it. I did it. It's all George Floyd's fault. He still can't breathe, and Austin Metcalf is dead now. I blamed it on Floyd.
Within the last hour, a judge granted the request to lower the bond for a North Texas teen facing capital murder charges. 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony is accused of stabbing and killing another student at a track meet in Frisco. Anthony claims he acted in self-defense. Chris Sadeghi live from the courthouse in McKinney. And Chris, the judge heard from Anthony's family this morning before making her decision.
Yeah, Kara, this hearing just wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. In it, we heard from Carmelo Anthony's father. He testified about his son. And in the end, the judge did decide to lower the bond from $1 million to $250,000. Carmelo Anthony entered the courtroom handcuffed, wearing a yellow inmate jumpsuit. He spoke only to identify himself to the judge and stared straight forward while his father, Andrew Anthony, testified about how his son is the oldest of 4 siblings.
You know, one thing I noticed that the Anthony family did, which I called it immediately. As soon as I took a look at that Negro, I said, it is not going to work. It's just not going to work. You can't win with him. And the Anthony family, their first attorney was a black guy, one of those woke-ish Negroes. And I pointed out that this is why rappers brag about having a Jewish attorney. Because this woke lawyer Negro you got, he ain't gonna get you across the finish line. You're gonna get more time with this little black nigga. He too woke. So they went and got them a white guy. He might even be a hat. I can't really tell, but you know, you never know. With a lawyer, it's better to get one who's connected.
Straight A student, active in his church, and worked 2 jobs while serving as captain of the football and track team. To this point, he's not had any criminal history. All factors his defense brought up when asking the judge to lower the bond. The amount they were asking for was $150,000. The prosecution, though, argued the bond should have stayed at $1 million, even asking Andrew Anthony about the online fundraiser that's raised $412,000 for his son's defense. Ultimately, though, the judge said the purpose of bond is not a punishment, but to ensure the defendant returns for his court dates and to protect the community. If Anthony does post the $250,000 bond, he will be on house arrest, confined to with a leg monitor, and cannot leave unless the court grants permission. Asked by Judge Angela Tucker if he understood the terms of the bond, Carmelo Anthony simply said yes. Austin Metcalf's family, the victim's family, was in the courtroom. It was a packed courtroom, not a seat to be had. And the judge did acknowledge the amount of scrutiny on this case, not only from the media, but the general public, pointing out that she's presided over many murder trials involving many different races, and that she has never seen the amount of security precautions having to be taken by deputies as what they're seeing in this case. Kara, back to you.
I know you didn't just call him Chocolate Rittenhouse. Jesus, Lord have mercy. You know, the judge is apparently getting death threats. I think she was doxxed on the internet. Her house pictures and what an address has been released and all that. And you know, we can't have that kind of thing, obviously, but it's getting a bit intense. And what I really wanted to do was actually take a look at the judge, because you don't always get to get in the mind of a person, like, especially if we're going to call the judge woke and DEI. we got to take a closer look at her.
I didn't see a female in my hometown that was an attorney until I was in law school, and went back to intern, and certainly not a person of color. And so now when we can have, summer interns come up and they are every race, creed, color, gender, but they can see someone that looks like them on the bench, I think that is so beneficial because it's representation. And when they look at me, young kids, law students, whoever it is, I want them to say, if she can do it, I can do it too. I didn't see a female in my hometown that was an attorney until I was in law school.
Now that is just a teeny tiny snippet of a longer conversation. And I want to find that conversation because I would like to understand a little bit more about the judge to see whether or not she is in fact woke. And I noticed just from that little short snippet, it's not giving me hope. Typically what I want to hear from somebody who gets into the law is passion for the law. Tell me about that time where, somebody got in trouble and you watched their case and you helped out, or you watched a lawyer save a friend's life or something like that. Tell me about the power that judges hold over the nation's moral future or something like that. Give me something about the law. Want to hear about your blackness? Because I need somebody that look like me. I could never be a judge if I don't have somebody that look like me.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
And the first question I'm going to give you, ask you to do it in a minute or two, is to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell the voters why they should vote for you.
Since we're in the runoff, to me, it's just getting down to looking at the last two candidates. And my whole campaign has been on my qualifications and experience. And so in that same vein, I am in my opinion, only qualified candidate for this bench. As you said, it handles civil, criminal, and family. In the area of family law, my opponent only has one family law case. If you look him up in Dallas and Collin County, on the Odyssey system, if you look me up, there's 170 cases. I'm the only one that's done any CPS cases. My opponent has not, and this court handles those as well, Child Protective Services cases. The judge of this court will also sit on the juvenile board. I'm the only one that has a juvenile law practice. My opponent has never practiced juvenile law, and I think it's important to take that experience to the juvenile board as well. In the area of criminal law, I've been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. However, I'm the only one that has actually tried death penalty cases. And I think that's very important to have that experience because those cases cost our county the most. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if we have a judge that doesn't have the experience, and those cases come back on appeal, then the taxpayers are paying double for those cases. And I'm one of 20 attorneys in this county that is on the list and approved to represent indigent defendants charged with capital murder.
Thank you very much. It's the state, the county, and virtually everywhere in the country the governments are going through a lot of budget cuts right now and looking for ways to save money. The state of Texas, I think, is especially going to be looking at the criminal justice system and the prison system. And one of the things I know that they're looking at very hard is the creation of specialty courts. It seems to be in vogue now, if you will. What is your thoughts? I know we have a DWI court. We have a juvenile court. What is your thoughts on the creation of specialty courts? Do you think it's a good idea for the county? Would you be in favor of it?
I absolutely think it's a good idea. Dallas, just down the road, has specialized courts. Collin County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And with growth, obviously, the court system grows. I think I heard one of the commissioners say that the bulk of the county budget is spent on the criminal justice system. So, yes, I do think it's important for us to be efficient. And I think that specialized courts can help us with efficiency.
Okay, thank you. When back early in the campaign, the Observer sent all the candidates a questionnaire. And one of the questions I asked you is if you believed that our system of partisan election of trial judges by party should be continued. And you said you understood the argument on both sides, but that the party affiliation helps voters know what their fundamental core values are. Well, you've had some fun, I assume, campaigning the last month or so, 2 months, 3 months, and since December, yeah. And based on your experiences, I'm sure you've met hundreds and hundreds of voters. How do you feel now about the partisan elections of judges? Do you still stand by what you said?
I do. Like I said, I do see the arguments on both sides. I think a lot of people feel that it should be that it shouldn't be a partisan election because the judge will have to preside over all matters, no matter who comes into the courtroom. But I think, again, that goes back to integrity and of that individual person that's elected. It's going to treat everyone fairly and the same. I do, though, think it's important for voters to have partisan elections, like I said, because you want to know what that judge's core fundamental values are. Are they going to strictly interpret and follow the law? Are they going to follow the Constitution? Or are they going to legislate from the bench? And I think it's costly for the taxpayers to have a judge that legislates from the bench because, as I said previously, those cases are going to be reversed and then cost the taxpayers double because those cases will have to be retried.
Thank you. And my last question, and I can give you a good couple of minutes to work on this one. Collin County courts, especially our district courts, have been in the news a lot more than they probably would like to be. And a lot of that news has called into question our ability to judge people properly, fairly. If you're elected as a trial judge in Collin County, what can you do to assure the people that come into your courtroom, be they jurors, be they litigants, be they defendants, be they prosecution, that they're coming into your courtroom and that justice will be done?
I believe that the individuals that know me and have known me for several years in this county as an attorney know what I stand for. And that would not change with me taking the bench. I try to be fair to everyone. And as a judge, you have to be. And one thing I think is very, very important when you are the judge is not everyone is going to agree with your decision, because obviously in every case, you're going to have pretty much somebody that wins and someone that loses. But I think it's important that no matter what happens to both sides, that each person or each side feels like they had a fair shake. You know, I may not have gotten everything I wanted, but I do feel like the judge listened to me. I felt like I had my say in court. I felt like the judge, was fair to both sides. I don't believe in the good old boy system, which I do believe that we have had in Collin County. Obviously, I'm not a part of that. And so I think, and I come from a very diverse background. Like I said, I've been a
Oh boy, it took us a minute, but now we're putting up the woke signals. It took us a minute to get there. I didn't want to interrupt really because she hadn't said anything worthy of harsh criticism until now. And this isn't even a harsh criticism thing, but I knew the woke signals would get shot up at some point because this is her interview running for effectively a higher position as a judge, and you gotta signal to the team, right?
But I do feel like the judge listened to me. I felt like I had my say in court. I felt like the judge, was fair to both sides. I don't believe in the good old boy system, which I do believe that we have had in Collin County. Obviously, I'm not a part of that. And so I think, and I come from a very diverse background. Like I said, I've been a prosecutor and I've been a defense attorney, and I've worked with all different types of people. And I think it's important to not judge people based.
What does diverse background actually mean? Like, how many people were you? How can you have a diverse background? I don't understand how one has a diverse background. Like, when I was a kid, I grew up around like a bunch of white kids. Like, I lived on a couple of military bases and like military housing and whatnot. And then as I got older, still a kid, but as I got older, we moved to the city, and then I was around the blacks and the niggas and all that. Does that mean I have a diverse background? I don't understand how one gets to have a diverse background. How can you be diverse? I don't get what that means. She had a diverse group in her. Look, Midwest Request. I'll have you know. Okay, sir. I'll have you know, sir. This is a family show, sir. Okay, we don't do that kind of thing here. It's probably true though.
Based upon that, what background they come from, how much money they have, or who their attorney is, but looking at each case for what it is and basing your decision on the law and what you feel is right in that case, within the constraints of the law.
Well, very good. Thank you so much. I really wish you the best of luck. And
thank you.
Early voting starts Monday, and election day is the
13th.
Yes. So good luck to you in the race.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So she's having a conversation with this nice white gentleman here. And I want to kind of do a compare and contrast because she's having a conversation with the white guy. I want to know how the conversation with the black lady goes.
You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adrienne Trimble, and I'm representing the Collin County Business Alliance today. Today, we're having a discussion with one of our wonderful elected officials here in the Collin County area. It's a part of a conversation of casual fireside chats that we're hosting. And this one focuses on why I ran for office. We're doing this in conjunction with Local Profile. And this series really aims to highlight the personal journey of our community leaders who hold key positions in office. And it's meant to really inspire others to step forward and think about ways that they can support the community and also look to join any type of elected official position or candidacy. So again, my name is Adrienne Trimble, and on behalf of the Collin County Business Alliance, I'll be in conversation today with a great friend of mine, a wonderful leader in our community, Judge Angela Tucker. She is one of the leading community members of the electoral here in the Collin County area, has been in place since 2012. And at the time of her election, she was the first African-American judge to serve in Collin County. I'm so excited to learn a little bit more about her journey into office, the lessons she learned along the way, the inspiration that she brings to all of us, and again, so that we can hopefully encourage others to think about running for office in our community. Judge Tucker, why don't you start off by first just telling us about your journey, your career. How did you end up where you are today?
I grew up in small town Texas, Sherman, Texas. So born and raised, I'm a Texas native.
I want to hear your truth, Judge. Everybody wants to hear your truth. Let's go.
I decided in third grade, I wanted to be a lawyer and never deviated from that. So I went to UT. I had a 5-year scholarship, but I finished in 3.5 years because I knew I had 3 more years of law school. So I went to law school in Dallas at SMU. And then my first job out of law school was Collin County District Attorney's Office. So that's how I came to Collin County. So went into private practice and practiced for 12 years before taking the bench. And my bench is a general jurisdiction court.
When you think about how you actually became a judge in 2012, when did you first know that you wanted to run for this position?
Even though I knew I wanted to be an attorney, being a judge was not on my radar. I had volunteered to help other candidates on their campaigns, work the polls, stuffed envelopes, all those things, but never was it on my radar because I did not want to enter the ugliness of politics. And so I was fine being a lawyer. I loved my practice. I loved what I was doing. My practice was doing very well. But I started to get encouragement from other women that were on the bench, my peers,
Oh man, it's a girl power thing. And my apologies. I've been kind of remiss in my my hosting duties. Shout out to Big Time. We were starting out the show, and I didn't want to interrupt what was happening, but we got a $20 super chat from Big Time. He says, when the Fourth Reich returns, the funniest part will be all of the other groups, especially black judges who have been letting criminals go, will not have the ability to connect the dots. Why do they hate us? You know what I got to say about that?
What exactly did black people ever do? What did we do
for white people to hate us so much?
Like, I'm genuinely asking, what did we ever do to deserve anti-Blackness in every single community?
Big time. It's funny that you would ask that type of question because I'm watching Black people's public reputation get kicked in the balls right now because of the weird hyperbolic defense of this kid. It's one thing to be like, you know, listen, I don't know if he's totally guilty. I'm just not sure. There, you know, it's a fair for a lot of people to not want to just jump to judgment one way or the other. But then what I'm really hearing from Black America is that cracker deserves to die. And that's a lot, bro. That's a long way from I don't know if he's really guilty. You know, there's a really crazy feeling among the Blacks right now. And a big time again with another $5 super chat. And for no reason whatsoever, a funny little mustache man was elected by the people who were tired of being slaves of the Treaty of Versailles. Yeah.
Can a nigga live? Can a nigga live? Please.
You know, other lawyers saying, Angie, you know, I think you should run. And I was like, no way. I'll write a check for somebody else. I'll hold a sign for somebody else, but not me. And so you get that encouragement from people that you know, that you trust, that you respect. And then I started to see individuals running for office that honestly, I was like, is this really somebody that I would want to practice in front of? You know, is this someone that I think should be on the bench? And the answer was no. And so I think quite often we will talk about it with each other, you know, another colleague or, you know.
I was looking for something and I don't know where to find it exactly. Dirty Folks. I was listening to Dirty Folks and actually a couple of times I think I heard him use this. He isolated a clip of a rant that I put out one time. And it was a rant that I did on one of my live streams. I didn't put it out, but he isolated this rant that I was kind of getting. I was really going in on the idea of black women being, on the one hand, fully enmeshed into the system, like we have all these professional business class women, you know, a judge right here, and on the other hand, constantly preaching to black men how you should be always at war with the system and you got to fight the system holding me back. And it's this real hypocritical position that a lot of black women are in. And Dirty Folks has this rant, and I was looking for it on his channel and I really couldn't find the video with it. But what I really wanted to talk about, and this kind of gets to the issue of black privilege and whatnot. If we actually have black women who have strong business and professional networks, you have at the beginning of the show, I played that story, and this was from a couple years ago. 19 black female judges on the bench at one time in the state of Texas, right? 19 black female judges on the bench in the state of Texas. You have a black female judge right now in a high-profile murder case where, frankly, the boys, based on all the statements giving the official police report, the boy's self-defense claim is weak at best, right? It's a very weak self-defense position he seems to be in. And this judge, for reasons that are infinitely beyond me, she lowered his bail by 75%, from $1 million to $250,000, $750,000 off the table. And I can only ask the question, is black privilege a thing? Do black people have and wield at least a certain amount of privilege in America, be it political, social, legal? Do black people wield some level of privilege? I think it's fair if I limit the scope just a bit. I think it's fair to argue that at the very least, Black women in particular have access, if not directly hold, Black privilege.
We are absolutely winning right now. Absolutely. We have done more than change the conversation. We changed the balance of power in the federal government.
Everyone's saying, oh my gosh, can you believe this person's running? But we don't do anything about it. And so I just decided that I could be the individual that's, complaining at the water cooler, or I could be the individual that stepped up and said, okay, I will run. I'm qualified. I know I can do this, and I know I can do it better than the individuals that I'm seeing. And so that's kind of what got me on this road.
How did you prepare to run, and how did this network of allies help you with it as you think about how those others that might be contemplating running for some type of office?
Some of the best advice I got when I got ready to run was from a mentor. And she said, trust no one. And she said, not even me, which blew my mind, because I'm like, you're one of my closest friends. I would talk to you about anything. But she said, don't even trust me, Angie. That's how serious this is. So when you're talking about assembling your inner circle, which you have to have on a campaign, it has to be those individuals that you would trust, with your life, trust with your kids, the people that I can share this information with this person, and it's not going to go any further than this person. So I did. I was very blessed to have close friends, family members, to be my inner circle that you need. And in politics, as I said, it's so negative sometimes. And you have to be careful, because your opponent will send someone over to your camp and act like they're volunteering for you, but they're really just getting information for your opponent. And that's why I say it's so important that your inner circle be those individuals that that you can trust no matter what.
One of the things I think would be helpful is, as you think about when you got started, how did you go about your fundraising efforts? When you think about those that you're, asking for support and those who really want to see you win, how did you approach those types of discussions?
For women, I think it's really hard for us to ask for money. So with campaigning, though, it costs money to run a campaign.
You a goddamn lie. You a goddamn lie. Portia, is it hard for women to ask for money? How you doing, Portia? Welcome to my new house. As you can see, this the money house, Portia. I finally got me a money house. I've been trying to get me a money house for a couple of months now, and I finally got me a money house. Welcome to the money house, Portia. But speaking of money, is it difficult for Black women to ask for money, or women in general? Like, she really gonna sit here and tell that bold-faced lie that it's difficult for women to ask for money? Please.
When you think about those that you're, asking for support and those who really want to see you win, how did you approach those types of discussions?
For women, I think it's really hard for us to ask for money. So with campaigning, though, it costs money to run a campaign, whether it's mailers or the signs, all those things. And so you kind of have to get over that hurdle to a point where you're asking everybody, for dollars. My race was a little more difficult because the judge was retiring, but I was running against his son. And so some of the lawyers, so typically that's where judges, if you're running for a judicial office, the lawyers are going to be the people that write you the checks, because obviously, they're invested in it. They're going to be practicing in front of you, or those are your friends. And so it was a little more difficult for me because the judge was still on the bench. And so they were worried about kind of backlash from the judge that they were still practicing in front of. So while I want to write you a check, I can't write you a check, because if he knows I'm writing you a check, then that may adversely affect my client in the courtroom. And so again, bringing in the ugliness of politics, that's not how it should be. But of course, those things happen. And so I just had to seek out other sources. So my church family, my school family, community leaders, business organizations. Everyone was very, very generous. And it didn't matter to me if I got a $2,500 check or I had 100 people write me a $25 check, because it all equals the same at the end. And so to me, it's even better to get those smaller checks, because that means I have more voters. So if one person writes me a $2,500 check, I may have that one vote. But if 100 people write me a $25 check, I know I have those 100 votes. I think that's a good way to look at it. But yes, fundraising is difficult.
If you think about it in terms of, now that you're here and, being a judge as long as you have been and the impact that you've been able to make, what are some of the most of your accomplishments that you're most proud of? And how do you feel that you've made a difference sitting on the bench now?
From a personal standpoint, it would be, opening up the world of possibilities for people that look like me. So when I grew up and decided I wanted to be a lawyer, I didn't see anyone in my hometown that looked like me. Certainly not a woman that was an attorney. I didn't see a female in my hometown that was an attorney until I was in law school.
I'm going to say something maybe a little bit off color here, but and I get why this would be the case, but I still think it's an odd thing to hear. You don't typically hear white guys say, "Oh, I wanted to be a judge because I wanted to see a white guy in the robe," right? But women and blacks or the POCs in general, they say that about everything. I wanted to be a race car driver because I wanted to see a Negro behind the wheel. I wanted to be a astronaut because I wanted to see a woman in space. And it's all kind of tiring. You know what I want? I want people who do the job for the love of the game. That's what I want. And like it or not, the majority of our systems and institutions have been built by a bunch of dudes who more or less were locked in for the love of the game, or they just really needed a job. But either way, all this weird moral grandstanding about I just needed somebody to represent my gang. I'm over it. I really am.
I went back to intern, and certainly not a person of color. And so now when we can have, summer interns come up and they are every race, creed, color, gender, but they can see someone that looks like them on the bench, I think that is so beneficial because it's representation. And when they look at—
Is Carmelo Anthony glad that he saw someone who looks like him on the bench? Because that's what this whole conversation really boils down to. If we're going to be frank and honest here, isn't that the reason why we want a black judge? Because there is the assumption, whether it's true or false, whether you believe it or not, there is the overall idea that, well, if there's a black judge, hook a nigga up. Look out for the homie. We might be cousins. And if that is a likelihood, if that is a reality even, then I do have to, again, pose the question, tentatively even, is black privilege a thing? Do we have privileges as black people in this country that we can access in moments of need or want? I don't have the answers. I just question things because, it's easier to question things than answer questions.
At me, young kids, law students, whoever it is, I want them to say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
We know that Collin County has the reputation of being the fastest growing county in the nation. Not only have we surpassed the 1 million population mark in 2018, but the landscape in Collin County continues to become even more diverse. Mm-hmm. However, we're not seeing the same diversity reflected in the candidate pipeline. Why do you think that is, and what do you think we can do to change it?
Oftentimes when I'm in a meeting, I'm the only person of color So that's always kind of been my norm. But I think some people, if that's not your norm, it can be somewhat uncomfortable for you to enter a setting, a meeting, an event where you're the only person of color. And so I think that
sometimes you just got to represent for the gang, right? Because that's why you're here, right? Because you got to represent for the gang. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Because I need somebody who's black like me to look out for me, because I'm black like me too, right? And I need somebody to look out for my black ass. I mean, all right, I get it. But you got to represent for the gang, though.
Sometimes makes people feel like they're not welcome there because they don't see someone that looks like them. To me, it doesn't mean I'm not supposed to be in that space. I'm supposed to be there just like anyone else. And so I think that's kind of the approach that we have to take, that if everyone believes that they're not supposed to be there, then no one ever enters the room. And we have these conversations about being in the room or being in the boardroom or being at the table, to have these conversations. Well, if you're not there, then no.
Right, because the whole assumption, and here we are with this table, a woman talking about the table. I hate this chick already, right? I hate you for entirely different reasons, but we're having a different show tonight. I'm not going to get all pillish. I'm not going to take pills on you tonight. But the entire reason for you wanting to be at the table as a black, and a woman no less, right, is because there is an assumption that the people at the table, the white men at the table, they are going to go out of their way, no less, to disadvantage you, to shortchange you, to injustice you, you know what I mean? And because there's an assumption that you have to be at the table because the white man is going to do something against you, then isn't it also fair to assume that you being at the table means you automatically do something for your people, right? Is that not the entire point? And how does that not equate to some level of black privilege? Because if you're going to argue that the alleged good old boy system is in effect a, quote, white privilege, then if you can create your own system, if you can operate your own systems, if you have your hands on your own levers of power and you can pull those levers as needed, then is that not in fact a privilege? It may not be the same level of privilege, right? There's levels to this shit, right? But is that not in fact a privilege?
That if everyone believes that they're not supposed to be there, then no one ever enters the room. And we have these conversations about being in the room or being in the boardroom or being at the table, to have these conversations. Well, if you're not there, then no one is representing your perspective. And I think that's very important. So I think the first step is just getting started. And sometimes to me, that's the hardest thing, is just to say, okay, I'm going to make up my mind and I'm going to do this. Running for office, as I said earlier, is not for the weak at heart by any means. I mean, so you have to have some tough skin. And so I think all those things are things that factor in to kind of an underlying fear that prevents a person from starting the journey. But if you feel like you're called, and I do use that word because we are servant leaders. If you are really doing this for the right reason, you're the person for the job, you truly are called.
Called by whom? Who called you? Who's on the phone with you right now? Who called you? Who told you to do this?
But if man had to find out that his God was a woman,
I say the black woman is God, and
black woman is God.
I say the black woman is God.
The black woman is God because, she was the first organism on this planet.
Hey, shout out to a True Hype with the $5 super chat. He says, notice how the same logic doesn't apply to sports. White guys just making men in the NFL millionaires without absolutely needing to see themselves, right? Because I think the whole see myself thing is a trope, right? It's just another one of those slogans that we've come up with over the years to keep black people kind of locked in the mission. And the mission is always, get Whitey. But as long as we're locked in the mission with the slogans and the trinkets and the big booty hoes and all that, you don't really start to, want to explore beyond the cave, as we were talking about before. And so and what we're talking about right now in a roundabout kind of way with this judge even and this big high profile murder case and her reducing the bail like that, are you a judge because in your heart of hearts, you want to get Whitey? Maybe not every single day of the week, but you just know every so often there's going to be a moment where you get to stick it to the man and there's nothing he can do about it. And it's just a theory. I don't claim to know all the things. I don't have all the answers. I just be asking questions. I be, theoretical and shit.
And I do use that word because we are servant leaders. If you are really doing this for the right reason, you're the person for the job. You truly are called to serve the community.
If there is one final piece of advice that you would give to someone that wants to run for office, what would that be?
I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got from someone that I consider a mentor is to get out there first, and then everyone is chasing you. So we already talked about making that decision and your first steps. And so once you're to that point that you decide this is what I'm going to do, then I would say just jump in and don't hesitate. Get out there, because if you're the first person, then some people are going to fall off because they're going to say that person is already there. And then if you're already getting your name out and that sort of thing, then again, that's more exposure for you. So I think that's one of the best pieces of advice that I got was to get out there first and then let everyone that's coming behind you, they're chasing you because you're the front runner.
Thank you so much, Judge Tucker. Thank you for all that you do for our community. Thank you for giving back and for being so open and being so candid. And we appreciate your time this afternoon. We know that you are an extremely busy person. So we just thank you for the opportunity to hear about your background and hopefully continue to inspire those that may choose to run for an elected position someday.
To the Black people who are saying that when Carmelo Anthony killed Austin Metcalf, Austin got what he deserved, what are we doing?
Rosa Parks days is over. You cannot think that you can move somebody out of a seat that you don't own and think that it's going to be okay. And you can't determine how I'm going to retaliate on you when you put your hands on me in an aggressive manner. Austin Metcalf got exactly what he deserved.
But white people, obviously not all of you, so let me just get that out the way, but a bunch of y'all are just a bunch of racist, bigoted crisis actors.
People really believe that that kid had the right to tell Carmelo to move. If that kid would have just minded his own business, would he or would he not still be alive?
Okay, would you say the same thing if that was a white kid who killed a Black kid? There are fake reports going around on the internet about what happened. So here's what actually happened according to the official police report. Carmelo and Austin were at a high school track meet. Carmelo was in the wrong tent. He was from Centennial High School, but was in the tent for Memorial High School. Austin told Carmelo that he was in the wrong tent and needed to move. Carmelo told Austin, "Touch me and see what happens," while putting his hand in his bag. Then Austin either touched or pushed Carmelo. Carmelo then said, "Punch me and see what happens." So Austin then grabbed Carmelo. Carmelo then pulled a knife out of his bag, stabbed Austin in the chest, and ran away. Austin died. When the police found him, Carmelo admitted that he did it, but asked if he could claim self-defense. Now look, Austin made mistakes. He shouldn't have touched Carmelo. He shouldn't have grabbed Carmelo. And he didn't deserve to die for it. It's tragic that neither of these young men had learned better conflict resolution skills. And let's be honest, on the scale of physical aggression, Austin was a 3. Carmelo was a 10. Carmelo went to a track meet with a knife. Carmelo went to the wrong tent with a knife. Carmelo chose to stay in that tent after being asked to leave. Carmelo chose to use a weapon on an unarmed human. This shouldn't be complicated. It also shouldn't be racial, but it's getting treated that way. I see Black people leaping to the defense of Carmelo with their words and their dollars. I see the killer's family raising as much money as the family of a kid who was killed. People donating to Carmelo Would you do the same if he killed another black kid? What if a white kid had killed a black kid? Would you donate to the white kid then? If we didn't know the races of the people involved, what would you do? Are there ways that black people have been treated unfairly? Of course. And now we're letting tribalism get in the way of truth. Being black shouldn't mean getting held to a different standard for better or for worse. We can't keep doing this thing where black people are always 100% victims and 0% responsible. We can't fight yesterday's injustice with today's double standard. That hurts everyone, including black people. Because if you look for reasons to apply a double standard, others will look for reasons to apply a double standard to you. Carmelo killed a kid. He turned a disagreement into a death. He took it from 0 to 100 when he had every chance to walk away. He took a life and ruined his own. And that's the only thing that should be black and white here.
Keep your hands to yourself. Yeah, I'm a chime on in. Keep your motherfucking hands to yourself. Yeah. Why should I have to tell you over and over again to fuck around and find out? After I done said it one time, the second time too close to big. Keep your motherfucking hands to yourself. Why you about a knife to the school thing? And oh, he was looking to go there to murder. Y'all motherfuckers trying to act like y'all purposely trying to misunderstand what the situation when you see it clear as day like we all do. He ain't went there to stab no whole school up. He ain't went there to stab no whole track meet up. Like y'all go there to shoot a whole school up. Yeah, he had it for protection. Anything can happen just like anything happened that day. That's why he had it. It tells you right there. Yeah. I can't even stroll good without hearing that sound. Y'all know the sound. When you're black, you're never really lonely because there's always a person all up in your business. Yeah. Now let's ask the realest question of them all. Why that boy felt entitled to go over there and put his hands on somebody else? Why? If the parents was there, like they claiming to be, and the mom that's on TV eyeballing her eyes out, why didn't she step up and get up and say, hey, baby, you can't be over here. You should find your own original teams. I've ran track. They've been doing this for the longest the same way. Kids are spread out everywhere. I have a niece that does it. Keep your hands to yourself. One of them was in my yard the other day, minding my business while me and my baby in the sun in our own yard. Like I told him, I ain't answering no questions. If you step in this yard, you'll be the next bitch to find out.
Did she just threaten a little kid? You know, this is one last thing I want to cover, and then we're gonna wrap this one up tonight. It's got to be short and sweet. We gotta get out of here tonight. But there's one last thing I wanted to cover, and this is a little bit of a hard break because it kind of is a callback to yesterday's show where we covered Frank Zanu, and he had this really brutal, oh my God, it was brutal. It was almost a physically painful conversation he was having with these two young kids about all three of them are Africans. And he was explaining to them why, the African nations cannot and will not ever industrialize or properly develop. And it was really rough, really, really rough. And there was something else that I wanted to include in the show yesterday, but, we did a lot, and I guess it got lost in the shuffle. But there's something else I wanted to add in the show, and it's loosely tied into today's conversation about Black privilege, because I think if we're going to raise questions of Black privilege and all that in today's modern culture, I think I should also, because I'm bold and I'm brave like that, and we bring the kind of content over here that most Black YouTube doesn't want to touch, or at least it doesn't want to touch with an honest eye. It's always, you know, through the jaded Black lens. And I don't like to do that. You know, I like to look at racism square in the eye as it is. And that being said, I want to watch with you all a little piece called The White Man's Burden. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. Get out your feelings.
In the early part of the 19th century, the idea that Britain had a duty to communicate to those subject to its rule the blessings and benefits of the European condition held a wide currency. Britain's imperial purpose, it was argued, was not simply the grubby pursuit of profit, but rather a commitment to bring light into the darkest corners of the world. Britain had to embrace the responsibilities of empire, to which it had been called by Providence. These wider global commitments found expression in the missionary movement abroad and the anti-slavery campaign at home, both underpinned by the belief that the great mass of mankind could and would be transformed.
I think evangelical Christianity has an important impact on attitudes towards race. And I think there is the first half of the 19th century attitude, which is in some ways idealistic and also rather unrealistic. I think there is the hope that as they, the other, Black and brown others, become subject to British rule, civilizing mission, the impact of Christianity, they will gradually, somehow, by some magic, turn into brown and Black Englishmen and women. I think there's an enormous evangelical hope that that will happen.
The sort of high point of universalist thinking, of the kinds of thinking which was, you know, we are all the same, we can all become the same. And what underpinned that was that everybody can become like us. I mean, that was really what was imagined in the abolition campaigns. You know, we are brothers under the skin, and the skin doesn't matter. But the skin did matter. And the problem is that after emancipation, when it became clear that emancipated Africans were not going to fit quite as easily into a picture of industrious, you know, hardworking, domesticated men and women, which was what the abolitionists had imagined, then a sense of disappointment, a sense of economic failure, arguments begin to emerge about how emancipation hasn't worked. You know, it's an experiment that hasn't worked. And what goes with that is new ways of articulating the differences between peoples that can no longer rest on, you know, the problem is slavery. Now there has to be something else. So the problem is, you know, the problem is civilization. The problem is.
That's dark. So, all right, we freed you niggas. What's the problem now? That's basically what she's asking, right? That's the question that was being posed at the moment in time, right? So, all right, you're free. Be white now. That's a hell of a proposition, all right? You're free. Be like the white people now. And you know what the Black said?
Give me cock, give me wife, give me children, give me this, give me that, kill my enemy, kill my enemy, kill my enemy, give me, kill my enemy, give me. Anyone that doesn't want me to succeed, die by fire, die by fire, die by fire, die by fire, die by fire. Give me this, give me that, kill my enemy, give me that, give me this, give me, die by fire, die by fire, die by fire, die by fire.
You know, these forms of barbarism which are still there. And they are, of course, associated also with skin and bones and hair and all those things. So there's a physical aspect to it. But I don't think that
18th century
think that
images go so
biological
hard,
notions
bro.
of race are the key
18th century images, like, oh, this is early 19th century, really. This is like late 18, early 19th century images. Oh my God, they go so hard. And look at the knife. Look at the knife. Like I told you, this is loosely connected to what we're talking about right now. He has a knife, people.
and hair and all those things. So there's a
Long ago, they knew. Oh, that nigga got a knife. They knew. In the early 19th century, they knew. All right, damn, this skinny nigga with a knife. Oh boy, here we go. Oh, God. This is how you lose your monetization.
there's a physical aspect to it, but I don't think that biological notions of race are the key to it. I think that it's a civilizational index, which is really critical.
Abolitionists were increasingly on the defensive over the question of emancipation in the West Indies. Those public men who had always opposed the abolition of slavery now became more forthright in their opinions.
You know, one thing that is interesting about just the nature of American Western culture, and every now and then you kind of hear the pushback, and it's a valid logic pushback. Like, who else would have ended slavery if not for the white Christian man? Right? Not just any old white guy. You know, it wasn't like the Vikings wanted to end slavery or nothing like that. The Vikings, they love slaves. But the white Christian man in particular made it his business. God knows why. Like, literally, it was between him and God. God knows why, though. But the white Christian man, he was just like, you know what? I just don't think God likes this kind of thing. And they made it their business to end slavery. And they never really get their credit for that. You know, how come America doesn't have a, we ended slavery day? How come Britain doesn't have a, we ended, Atlantic slave trade day? I mean, like, how come? You would think if you actually are the people, the one group of people who ended like a 10,000-year-old business, right? Like, you understand how deep the business is. This is bigger than Giuliani breaking the mafia, which he didn't really, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, of all the things to grandstand about. And then to be fair, because you were like, I'm a troll. I like trolling. I like laughter. I can laugh at myself, which is why, trolling doesn't really hurt me as much as it may hurt others. Because if we have a sense of humor, you don't take yourself as serious. The jabs just don't go as deep. But you got to understand, because Black people are insanely sensitive about the whole slavery thing, this is a great trolling opportunity for white people. You realize, like, you owe me one, right? That's all I'm saying. It's like, the white guy, how come the white guys never like, you niggas owe me one? I ain't never going to collect on it. I'm not asking for it right back right now, but I'm just saying, like, if I should ever find myself enchained, like, help a brother out. Like, really, how come the white man has never been like, you niggas kind of owe me one, is all I'm saying, though. Ending slavery is a big deal.
Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break.
Events in the Caribbean demonstrated, it was claimed, the essential inferiority of Black people. They were born to be mastered, and had only been briefly lifted out of barbarism by their enforced enslavement and encounter with Europe. whilst the empire's white subjects might be capable of self-government. Those colonies with substantial black populations were not.
You just don't hear writing like
Those
that
optimistic,
anymore.
progressivist, and for that matter, arrogant British ideas about how empire was going to develop were dealt a further blow by a series of events in the colonies.
Talking about that Haitian
The
Revolution.
so-called Indian Mutiny of 1857 and the Morant Bay Rebellion in Jamaica in 1865.
Bro, these old 1800 images. I tell you, these images go hard, bro. Oh my God. The artists back there, this was like memes before memes. Memes are eternal. Do you realize on the walls of the pyramids, there are memes? There are caves in France that are like a kabillion years old, and there are memes written on the caves. The guy telling the joke about the cows or something like that. Their memes are eternal. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Both dramatic rejections of British authority, forced missionaries and their supporters.
Disclaimer, these are incredibly offensive racial images, and I do not approve. I don't approve of this at all. This is terrible. This is all terrible stuff. You're a bad person if you like these
To
sort of things.
recognize that colonial rule
This is for
was not a
educational
simple matter
purposes
at all.
only.
The empire's non-white subjects were perhaps less men and brothers, but rather children who needed responsible and at times forceful parents. Although there was no doubting Britain's civilizational superiority.
Now, what's interesting about this conversation, and this is where I really, yesterday I had I think, if I may say so myself, we had a great show yesterday. We had a really good show, but I messed up because I was supposed to play this right after the conversation with Frank Zanu to do an immediate compare and contrast, because what Frank Zanu was actually talking about was the opposite side of this coin. So 100+ years ago, white men are having a conversation about the blacks and the black nations and about colonization and how the black nations will never be able to really manage their own modern society, right? And that was modernity of the late 1800s now. And then time goes by, and then they have the decolonization, and we covered the decolonization. That was a journey. That was a moment in time we all shared together. And then now, after all the decolonization, again, it was over 100 years ago. We just watched clips from The White Man's Burden. And now a black man has finally, not just from some kind of weird evolutionary perspective, but from a sociological perspective as well, because there's social pressures that would prevent a man from like speaking this way publicly. But a black man has finally risen up to the point where he could actually and forcefully and logically articulate exactly the white man's burden. It's an interesting timeline we're on. But anyway, that's about enough of that kind of thing. You guys want to watch the rest of The White Man's Burden? I'll put the link in the chat and you can catch the rest of it yourselves. We're going to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, though. Always leave them wanting more. That's what I've been told. That's how you got to do this thing, right? You got to get in, get out like a robbery. But I'm going to wrap this one up for the night. Thank you guys so much for following. Appreciate you coming through. Thank you for supporting the show. Shout out to everybody who donated. I don't know. I guess I'll be back tomorrow with another one. I'm going to try to keep up an almost daily schedule. Hey, hush, angry snowman. Nobody cares about the white man's burdens. You're on your own, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. You got to toughen up. It's a cold world for the white man out here.
We're the whites. Nobody ever cares if bad things happen to us anymore.
You guys have a great night. Thanks for watching. I will catch you guys later. Peace, y'all.
Aspiring to be patriarchs like what white men have, that isn't freedom. That isn't going to help anybody. It's certainly not going to help black people.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.